What's up everyone, it's Carla from Travel With Me TV and welcome back to my channel for yet another vlog. Today I want to talk about some of the worst places that I've ever had to sleep while traveling. Number one worst place that I ever slept in is... One of the worst places that I've ever slept in, and actually it's funny because it's also one of my favorite places that I've ever slept in, is in a storage room in the south of France. So this is a super funny story, and like I said, it's my favorite. In the moment it kind of sucked, but it was great at the same time. So basically my friend and I, we were, well, she was living in France and I went to go visit her in France, and we went down to the south of France for the weekend because we found some really good flights and we wanted to check it out. So we booked a hostel and we booked a private room for just the two of us, but then when we got there, for some reason they had put us in a co-ed hostel. So I told them, you know what, like we had booked private rooms, like what is this? And they said, honestly, we're fully booked for the weekend because it was a long weekend, but the only option would be, we have a bunk bed in our storage room that no one's using. It's kind of like one of their extra beds or whatever. And they said, if you want, you guys can stay there for tonight, and then tomorrow we definitely have room for you in a private room. So I just looked at my friend and I was like, okay, well, you want to? I mean, we're here, where else are we gonna go? So we actually ended up, no joke, it was a storage room, like full of all their storage, all their things, like extra pillows and blankets and kitchen things, and it was just so crazy. And it was just like this bunk bed in the middle of it. So and it wasn't that big either. So we went, she got the top bunk, I got the bottom bunk, and we're like, okay, whatever. Obviously they didn't charge us for the stay, so at least we got a free night. But I remember just like laying there and just laughing with my friend. I was like, what are we doing? We're in the south of France right now in a storage room and this is where we're sleeping. But no, honestly, it ended up being such a fun moment and such a fun story to tell. You know, how many people can say they slept in a storage room in the south of France? Maybe not ideal, but a fun story nonetheless. So that's number one of worst places that I've ever slept in. So the second worst place that I ever slept in would be on a train. It was a 7-hour train ride, and the reason why it was the worst, but also the best, all these worst places end up being the best stories. But basically what happened was, we were in Italy, my friend and I, and we were planning on, our trip was to go through Italy and then do Germany. So like 1 week in Italy and 1 week in Germany. So we spent a couple days in Italy, and then when we got to Cinque Terre, which is a super beautiful and popular place to go to, we got there, we go to our hostel, and then for some reason our hostel is fully booked again. So we're like, okay, well, where are we gonna sleep for tonight? And again, it was a long weekend, so it was super packed. It was impossible to find other hostels to sleep in. So we said, all right, so we just went back to the train station and then we just checked for the first train out of there, and it ended up actually taking us to Austria. And that was really our only chance. We were planning on staying in Cinque Terre for a couple days, but because that kind of got messed up, we ended up just taking a flight, or not a flight, but catching a train to Austria. And it was a 14? No, I think it was a 7-hour train ride. But you know what? It ended up being a blessing in disguise because we ended up going to Austria. Then from there, we were just like booking our hostels the nights before. We ended up going to Austria, and then from there we went to Hungary, and then from Hungary we went to Czech Republic, and then from there finally we went to Germany. So because of that little mistake, we were able to see 3 new countries, and I loved it. And actually my favorite country was Hungary. I loved Budapest. So if that never happened, like if we actually ended up staying in Cinque Terre, maybe I would have never fallen in love with Budapest, who knows. But yeah, so it was kind of crazy. So we get on the train. It was a 7-hour train ride. We weren't really prepared, so we didn't have like comfortable things to kind of like sleep with and stuff. And they put us in, they're kind of like not cabinets, but the train had like rooms, and in each room was like benches. So you'd have like one here, so you can fit like 4 people on this side, 4 people on that. So let's just say 4 people here, 4 people there. You go into the room and then you have space to leave your bags up at the top. So for the first like maybe 2 or 3 hours of the train ride, it was still kind of daytime, so it was packed. There was a lot of people coming in and off because the train was going through Italy, stopping a lot of spots and picking up people and dropping them off. And then honestly, I think the train ride was more than 7 hours. It was probably like 10 or 12 or something. But anyways, one portion of our trip, which was actually pretty cool, was we were sitting with, it was myself and my friend Nabila, and then another guy who he ended up being Portuguese. He was, I think, from Brazil, but living in Italy. So he spoke Portuguese and Italian, but didn't speak English. And then me and my friend both speak English, but I speak Spanish, and she actually speaks a little bit of Portuguese because she lived in Brazil for 3 months, so she picked up some of the language. So we legit spent 7 hours speaking. He would speak in Portuguese or Italian, I would speak in Spanish, and we actually had a full conversation for 7 hours, speaking 3 different languages. And then if there was ever a word that he was saying in Portuguese that I didn't really understand, because the Latin languages are so similar, Italian, Spanish, Portuguese, even French, like all those languages are honestly very similar. So I can have, because I speak Spanish, I can have conversations with other people in Italian or Portuguese, but they're speaking Italian and Portuguese. I'm speaking Spanish, obviously. I can't speak their language, but I can understand most of it. But if it's spoken slowly, obviously if they speak really fast, I'm like, okay, no, I can't put those words, I can't split them up. But if they speak slowly, then I can understand. But yeah, so we legit spent 7 hours talking, him in Portuguese or Italian if I couldn't get it. Then I would speak Spanish the whole time. And then like I said, if there was something that we couldn't figure out what and there was a lot of charades. There was a lot of like guessing what was going on and stuff. And she was picking up a lot of the Portuguese if she maybe understood something. So it was fun. So that actually ended up being a fun trip. Even though sleeping on a train for however many hours that was, whether it was 10 or 12 hours, was really uncomfortable and not ideal because we did want to stay in Cinque Terre. That would be number 2 of the worst places that I ever slept on, but ended up being the best. Okay, so the 3rd worst place that I ever slept is, so I was going on a cruise with my friend and we were leaving from Miami. So our flight was from Ottawa to Miami, and then we were catching the cruise from there. Or yeah, it was either Miami or Fort Lauderdale, but whatever, same thing, Florida. And it was winter time at the time, and a lot of flights leaving from Ottawa got delayed often because of snowstorms or bad weather or what have you. So we actually booked our flight a day before actually having to get onto the cruise, because that way it gave room for air in case, you know, if our original flight did get delayed, we had room to book a new flight to get onto to make it there on time to catch the cruise. Because if you miss the cruise leaving, then you miss it altogether, and that's a lot of money to waste. So we wanted to be extra careful. But yeah, so we left the day before, and we didn't book a hotel because we're like, once we get there, we'll check for like hostel or hotel and then see what's available. But when we got there, we didn't realize that the hotel, well, I mean, this was a couple years ago, but anyways, we didn't realize that the hotels were really expensive last minute, and it was a super busy weekend, so there wasn't a lot of options. So it was like, I don't even know, like 400 bucks a night was like the cheapest hotel American that we could find. So 400 American is like, God knows how much in Canadian. So we're like, oh my God, we're not gonna do this, let's just sleep in the airport. So that obviously wasn't the best sleep of my life. We didn't have pillows or anything, so I just had like a sweater or something that I used as a blanket that like covered half my body. And then we just laid on the floor with lights on our face. And I like to sleep in darkness, so that wasn't very comfortable at all, like on the hard floor. And then the whole time I was freezing cold, and I don't even know what I ended up using for a pillow, but I was so cold, and so was my friend. The whole time we're like, oh my God, it's freezing. But it was the quietest spot that we could find in the airport where not a lot of people were walking back and forth, so we felt like we can kind of hide. But then not until the morning when we finally woke up did we realize that we slept directly under the AC. So where the AC was, it was just pushing down all the cold air on us the entire night. That's why we were freezing the whole time. So yeah, that definitely wasn't one of my favorite spots. Actually, it is definitely one of the worst spots that I ever slept on. Funny story, but still not, I would not want to do that again. But yeah, so that's number 3. Alright, so number 4 on the list of the worst places that I've ever slept was one of the first times that I went to, actually this was the first time that I ever went to New York. My friends and I, we took a bus from Ottawa straight to New York, which was a 7-hour bus ride and not very comfortable at all. And we were such geniuses back then. This is when I first started traveling. I wasn't a travel guru, I didn't know what I was doing, but we decided to take a 7-hour nighttime bus to New York, get there at 7 in the morning, spend the entire day in New York, and then take a 7-hour bus ride back to Ottawa that night. Worst idea I've ever had. The reason why we did that is because we wanted to save money on hotels or hostels or whatever. We didn't want to spend money staying there overnight. And honestly, I should have, because that was the worst thing ever. The bus was like, the seats were like straight like this the whole time. So the whole way to New York, none of us slept. All three of us stayed awake the entire time. We were just talking for 7 hours. We couldn't sleep, so we were just like, forget it. We're not even gonna bother trying. So we get to New York at 7 in the morning. So for the whole day, and I think we were there until 10 p.m. So more than 12 hours, we're just walking around and shopping and having, I think it was during Black Friday too, so it was like so crazy. And we were shopping and having fun, and it was super fun, but by the end, we were so tired because we were sleep deprived. We hadn't slept yet since the day before, because we were actually legit planning on sleeping on the bus, so we didn't even sleep well the night before, so it was just so hectic. New York was beautiful and we had a lot of fun, but I wished to God that I had slept the night before because I was so tired. By the end of it, shopping, I was like a zombie walking around. But yeah, so that's definitely number 4 on the list of the worst places that I've slept. And number 5 on the list of worst places that I've ever slept while traveling is in Guatemala. Again, this is a bus ride. So we were staying, when we went to Guatemala, we went to Antigua, and then we went to Lake Atitlán, and then we went back to Antigua, and we wanted to go to other places, but we were only there for I think it was 10 days or 2 weeks. I think it was 10 days. So we were running out, no actually, was it 2 weeks? Anyways, however long it was, we were running out of time by the end, and we were really enjoying Antigua, so we were spending a lot of time there. But then last minute, literally 2 days before going home, we said, you know what, we need to go see Tikal is where they have the ancient Mayan ruins. I'll leave a link to that video in the description below. So the only bus leaving from Antigua to Tikal was leaving at night, 12-hour bus ride in total, and it was so deadly. We had booked VIP seats. We booked the VIP seats, and it was supposed to come with a pillow and a blanket and food and all this good stuff and super comfortable chairs. But then when I got on the bus, for whatever reason, so we were on the back, like the last row of the VIP chairs, which is like lazy boy chairs. And of course, that seat doesn't recline because it had the AC or generator or whatever was behind me. So my seat didn't recline. So for 12 hours, and it was nighttime, so I was tired. I was like sitting straight up, and they didn't give us blankets or food or pillows or anything. So it was super freezing cold. Didn't get any sleep. It was such a struggle, and probably definitely the worst sleep, or the worst place I've ever slept ever in my life. But it was worth it because Tikal was so gorgeous. And then we spent the whole day in Tikal, and then we had to take a bus back to Guatemala City so that we could take our flight back to Ottawa, and it was just so tiring, but it was worth it. Honestly, every single situation has always been worth it. In the moment, they can suck, but then after, you know, looking back, it's funny and it's fun stories to tell, and you learn from it. But anyway, so those are my top 5 worst places that I've ever slept while traveling. I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Leave a comment below because I read all of them, and please don't forget to subscribe. Thank you guys so much for watching. Love you and happy traveling.